Hi everybody, I hope you can all hear me. Mark here from the UK, and today we're here to talk about KNX project design and some of the best practice, some tips around project design and documentation, and managing projects in a more efficient way. This is all coming from KNX UK, where we've from the national group KNX UK, where we've recently developed a new onboarding pack to help integrators on their journey with KNX as they start their journey, having a kind of pre-formatted template which enables them to document a project, gives them a starting point for contracts and the legal requirements around running a project, really with the aim of helping people get up to speed faster with KNX and deliver projects more successfully and more profitably. So we're going to have a look at, just go through the agenda, do a bit of an introduction of myself and also of the other speaker, Neil, who will be joining us as we get into the presentation. We're going to look at why documentation is so important and how it can make a difference to your project and how it can make your project more successful. Look at estimating versus quoting and what the difference is between the two, and how you can have a more structured process for your quotations, and moving from offering a lot of quotations and doing a lot of design work as part of your quotation to having a more structured process where you offer an estimate and then go into a charge for design. Let's talk about that a little bit. Then we're going to look at about design and what you need to capture on a KNX project, what the different types of information are, and a little bit of an example of how that would work with the onboarding pack. And then I'm going to hand over to Neil, who's going to look at keeping it legal, which is some of the different discussing contracts and why it's really important to have a clear contract with customers on projects, and how that can protect not only yourself as a business but also the customer, and make sure that they're clear about what's going to be offered, what they're going to get for what they're spending, and gives you, it's not always a negative in terms of having a tighter legal setup for a project. It can make you come across as being more professional. It makes it clear to the customer that you're dealing with a company who takes it seriously and is going to deliver the project because they're willing to put in place that legal protection to ensure they do deliver it. So it's a real positive and as part of the onboarding pack. So Neil's going to take us through that, and then we'll do a little bit about how the KNX UK onboarding pack can help. If you've got any questions, please use the question on the chat. Just question in the bar. We'll get through them as we can in the dashboard. And if we don't answer them as we go, we'll certainly have time at the end. If you do have any questions, you're able to ask them at the end as well. We'll have some time for Q&A. And of course, the presentation is being recorded. So if there was anything you weren't sure on, you'll be able to access the download, access the recording afterwards to be able to have a look back. All right, so who am I? Well, I'm Mark. I work for Ivory Egg, which is a distributor in the UK. We do training, we help develop integrators, but we're also a wholesaler. We have an online shop and we distribute worldwide from the UK or from our sister companies, Ivory Egg Australia and Ivory Egg New Zealand. I'm a member of the KNX, I'm a board member of KNX UK, the national group, and have been for a few years now. And that's really to help grow and benefit KNX in the UK. You know, there's a lot that can be done in the market to improve the quality of projects, to get more people involved, to get more projects involved, and really drive KNX and make sure KNX is seen as the right solution for building control in homes and buildings. Also with me is Neil. Neil is also a KNX UK board member, a very long-standing KNX UK board member. Neil heads up Harris Grant, which is an integration company with a focus on high-end projects. They've done a lot with marine, on yachts and super yachts. Certainly one of the premier KNX companies in the UK, and been using it for quite a few years as well. So Neil brings a lot of experience. We really value him in the national group, and he's headed up the legal side of this onboarding pack. So he's going to be speaking in a little bit, which he'll take over for the presentation. Right then, so why do you need design documentation? What's the point? Why can't we just, work out what we need, jot it down on a bit of paper, buy some products, program it and install it? Well, The key thing, and I've come back to this many times, that the last 5% of a project, that last bit, the really hard part to complete, where you've got questions from the customer, where things are, you're almost there, but there's little snags and there's little things that aren't quite working properly. You finish that at the beginning. If you've got really good documentation of projects, really clear scopes about what is required in the project, the customer has a really clear understanding of what is being delivered as well. If you get that right at the beginning, it's much easier to finish a project, because it's the change, it's the lack of clarity that goes on throughout a project, which leads to it being difficult to finish. And a lot of that is because of the functional aspect of KNX, and actually building control and smart home systems in general. If we're an electrician and we're installing a light switch for traditional control of lighting, the functionality of the light switch is fixed. It does what it says on the tin. You buy it, it switches a circuit on and off. It might be a two-way switch, it might have multiple gangs, whatever, but the functionality is defined. So you don't need to tell the customer what it does. You don't need to document that, because you know it's a light switch, or maybe it's a rotary dimmer, whatever it may be. But with building control, it's different. The keypad doesn't do anything. It doesn't do anything until you program it and tell it what to do. So the functionality needs to be specified. There's a really big difference from a button. Maybe we've got just a single button in a room. There's a really big difference between that turning a light on and off, dimming a light up and down, or recalling a scene, or maybe doing a sequence and shutting down a whole building. If you think about the different amount of programming that's required for those different aspects, for those different functions, there's a big gap. You know, you've programmed the on-off function and probably the time I've taken to say it. It's very simple, especially with ETS6, the new software version, very quick and easy to program basic functions, particularly using the channel function and the software, which is definitely worth looking at. That's going to take, a few seconds, if maybe a minute. If I want to create a scene with multiple circuits, that's going to take maybe 5 minutes. If I'm going to have control from a single button across all of the building to shut down the whole property, the actual programming of that might not take long, but I've had to have everything else done to make that possible. So that could, that's something you could do at the end of the project, but there's a lot that would need to happen for that to be possible. So if I don't know what a button action is going to do, if I haven't specified that functionality of each individual button at the beginning of the project, how do I know what to charge the customer? How do I know how long it's going to take? How does the customer know what he's going to get for what they're paying for the project? How do I know how to program it? And how do I prove that the system is doing what it says it's going to do? How do I get to the end of the project when I'm taking the customer through their brand new system, showing them how everything works, and they go, oh, that's not what I wanted that button to do. And you're going, well, yeah, but that's the best thing for it to do. And they're going, yeah, but I want it to do something else. And then you get into an argument and the project can never complete because nobody understands what the system was supposed to do or what it's going to do. The concept of KNX can do everything is absolutely true. And yeah, we can have a button press do all kinds of amazing things. But if we don't define that and document that, then how do we ever prove that the system works the way that it's supposed to? And that's the big difference when moving from a traditional electrical system through to a KNX control system. It's understanding that the product, the thing we need, is one part of it. The actual functionality of it is the other part. And having that specified makes a big difference. Another thing with KNX and why it's really important to document well is the extent. KNX is brilliant. It can control so many different things. It can do the lighting, shading, the HVAC, metering, the monitoring, environmental sensing, whatever you need to control with KNX, you can, which is great. But how do you manage that as a business, as an integrator? How do you keep track of all the different parts of the system that you need, the different products, the different functionality, the different programming you're going to need? How do you make sure you've got everything allowed for? You might have 8 dimming circuits, great, you've got an 8-channel dimmer, but then you forgot one dimming circuit. All right, well now you need a whole nother dimmer. The cost of that could be high in terms of the product, but maybe you've allowed enough margin on the project. So do you know what, an extra actuator here or there isn't a big deal. But when you start to think about the impact that can have in terms of your panel design, your programming time, your functionality and your handover to the customer. And then also maintenance. You know, if you've not charged properly for all the different parts, how are you going to maintain and support them over the project? So by documenting everything that's going to be happening in a clear and structured way, we can ensure that all the different elements of the project have been considered and are being correctly charged for and are being correctly supported and maintained over the life of the project. Another really thing, and it's a bit of a quote, it's quite a common saying, if it's not documented, did it even happen? I think this is really relevant because it's really easy, particularly on private contracts or private clients where you're working directly with the homeowner on a project, to kind of make changes as it happened. So you might be programming and the customer comes in and says, oh, I really would like that button to do something else. Can you just change that? And that can you just is the words to watch out for, because you can change it. Of course, you could easily just change the functionality of the button. But as soon as you start to do that, you're changing the fundamental operation of the system. You're making changes beyond what you had said you were going to offer and what the customer's going to expect. And that can very quickly lead to issues when it comes to completing projects and trying to get the final payment out of the customer. So having a way to track those changes. Yes, I can make that change, but I need to update the functionality spec so we're clear as to how the system's going to operate. Or let me document that. Yes, we will be able to do that, but initially I need to program the system in the way that we said we would, in the way that we agreed initially. So that we can have a clear demarcation to say, this is the system working, this is now complete, and then we'll make those changes and customizations after we've completed the project. That could be included in the cost, of course, that's very simple to do, but having those clear understanding of what you're offering, what complete looks like, is something you can achieve by having good documentation. It's also important to track other changes, like maybe when circuits get added, quite common in the bedroom, where initially there was going to be a kid's bedroom with a single bed, so you only need one light switch, and then it changes to a guest bedroom, so you need to add another bedside light and maybe another keypad. If you're told about that but you don't document it, and you don't document the fact that you're instructed to add additional circuits, how would you be able to turn around to the customer and say, well, there's an increase in cost? So it's really important to capture that information so that you've got, so you're protecting yourself, but you're also protecting the customer by ensuring that you're able to deliver what you've said you will deliver. Because that's what we're all after here, really, is delivering projects that work, that the customer's happy with, that are profitable for us as businesses, of course, but it's the end product which is the goal, it's not the journey. As long as the journey is structured and controlled, it means we can get to that end project. I've put a couple of pictures up here. One is of a keypad, and I really like this image because it shows on a keypad how you can have quite different functionality. You've got control of the heating, you've got control of the blinds, and you've got control of the lights. Now, you may agree or disagree with that functionality. It's obviously depends what is specified. That's the point. You need to be clear about how each thing is going to work, because there's so many different ways of interpreting how the functionality could work. As we can see, here's the keypad that I was talking about with the functionality of the heating, the blinds, and the lights. And also the panel design, getting that design right, particularly where you're working with an off-site panel build. If you're doing all of the installation on site and you're wiring all the actuators and the control panel on site, then you can kind of work it out as you go along. I wouldn't recommend it. I think there's enough benefits of doing documentation that you should be doing it. But if you're going to do off-site panel builds, if you're going to build a panel in a workshop and deliver it to site complete with DIN rail terminals along the top, where you can wire all the circuits and the property, there's lots of benefits of doing that. Your installation time will be reduced, your time on site will be reduced. It's much easier to build a panel in a workshop than it is to do it on site. More comfortable, you can have your own your nice coffee instead of the coffee on site, whatever it may be. But it's a much simpler way and does lead to a better product, a better solution at the end. But you can only do that if you've got a very clear understanding of what the project requires, and the way to capture that is in documentation. Okay, let's just change slide, make sure that comes through. I hope everyone can still see that. So I hope you'll agree that documentation is really important. Another aspect which we've tried to solve with this onboarding pack is to help integrators estimate the cost of a project. And it's really important to consider this as part of a process. It's quite traditional, I guess, on a project to offer a quotation, but to be able to offer a quote, which is the price it's going to take to complete the job, you need to understand a lot about the project. You need to understand the detail to be able to accurately provide a quotation. But we don't have that information at the beginning of a project. We're guessing. We're having to make a lot of assumptions about the number of circuits, the number of heating zones, the number of keypads they want, the type of functionality they're going to want on the keypads. All of that has a really big impact on the amount it will cost to deliver the project. So providing a quotation seems like a good idea, but actually it's almost dangerous, because if you get that wrong, it can massively impact the profit. The alternative is you spend a lot of time doing the quotation. You do all this design, you get all this information to ensure that your quotation is accurate, which is great, but you've not charged for that. You've given a free quotation. You've tried to capture all this information. You've almost given given the information away for free. You've done a design by default without really thinking about what you're offering the customer. It'd be very simple for them to take all that information and get a price from your competitor who hasn't had to do all that work, so of course it will be able to be cheaper. So that quotation concept, which can often work for more basic electrical control systems, number of keypads, number of light switches, number of sockets, I know how long it takes to install each, sweet, here's my price, off you go. That just isn't possible with a system that has the potential complexity of KNX, but also the fact that we're dealing with a programmed system as opposed to just an install system. So quotation has certain risks. And a really simple way around that is to move to an estimate and a design process. So your initial conversation with the customer is around estimating, trying to get an idea of what we're going to offer, the type of functionality we're going to program, the rough number of keypads and circuits and zones we're going to control, generating a quick estimate that we can say to the customer, this project would be in the region of 25 to 30 grand, for example. Now, if someone's experienced in the industry, they'll be able to do that relatively accurately from the gut feel, from your understanding of the customer and experience. And it's quite easy to do once you've done 10 projects. You've kind of covered all the different bases. It's much harder to do if you're dealing with your first KNX project or your first couple of KNX projects. Or maybe you've had a lot of experience with commercial KNX and maybe less with residential, and then it's a completely different world. So that's why we've come up with a tool that enables you to plug in some basic information, number of circuits, number of keypads, type of functionality, and that will generate a rough price. And it is a rough price. It's to give the customer an idea of the type of cost they're going to be paying. And it's really important to do this early, because you can use it as a qualifying step to ensure that the customer understands what the costs will be, that they're willing to pay that much, that they're understanding about it. There's two customers, one that has an understanding and has done a bit of work beforehand and is clear about what the cost will be. And then there's the dreamer, the one who comes along and is like, yeah, I want all this stuff. I don't want to pay for it. I'm not expecting it to cost anything more than what I would pay for a normal 230-volt system. But of course I want a smart home. Yeah, a couple of grand, sure, fine. So being able to get a value in front of the customer early is really important. It sets clear expectation that there is going to be a cost involved and the region of the cost is, and enables you to quickly separate the wheat from the chaff, find out who's going to be a valuable lead without having invested all the time in the quotation, trying to get this design done when you don't really know if the customer is going to be willing to go forward with the project. So the software, it's a simple spreadsheet, but it gives you all the different numbers you'll need to plug in to be able to come out with an automatic quote or the pricing, which you then format into your own quote, but you could use this as a format. It includes programming time. We've used some worked out some industry averages to give you the programming time that it would take for each device, be it a keypad or an actuator and a panel cost, your system devices, your power supplies. All that information is automatically generated to come out with a rough price. Once you've got the rough price, you can say to the customer, this is the region we're looking at. This is what we think it'll cost to deliver this project, as we've discussed. If you're willing to go ahead, we can move forward with a structured design or a more formal design. And the key is you can charge for that. You can charge for the amount of time it's going to work out, how much it will cost to deliver the project properly, because you've already been able to give the customer a price up front. Because you're being paid, because you're charging for it, you can make sure the design is correct. You can invest the time to ensure you have an accurate price for the project, which includes all the different devices and all the different functionality. It gives you the time to be able to discover the information, talk to the lighting designer, work through the plans the architects put forward, just work out with the plumber what the heating is going to be, whatever it may be, capturing that information so that you can then document it. Now, you might charge this on an hourly rate. You may charge as a percentage of the estimate, which is quite a good way of doing it. You know, the design fee is 2% of the estimate, for example. It's not necessarily about covering all of your time. It's about building a professional relationship with the customer. Because they've had a price initially, and because you're talking about a professional relationship where you're charging for your time, and they understand that you are using your experience and your business and what you do is design and make control systems. So they're going to have to pay to get that knowledge, right? Because you've built that relationship, it's very likely the project will go ahead with you. Of course, if they paid for a design, it's their design and they could take that and use that with another integrator. At least you've been covered for your time, or at least you've had a contribution towards your time. You've had some money in recognition for that. But the reality is, once a customer has given you money for the design, as long as you perform satisfactorily, you've got the advantage. They're more than likely to come back to you for the work. Or they're going to say to you, look, that's coming out a bit more expensive, but I can see what we're getting for the system. So then you can have a conversation about the functionality, reducing the cost, but instead of reducing the cost in terms of making it cheaper, what you can do is change the design to reduce the cost. So the customer can see that if they want it cheaper, they will get less, which is how it should work. So by building this relationship, by setting up these terms with the customer of an exchange of information, I will give you information about how you can control your home, how you can design a system, and you will give me money for that. That's how it works, right? This is a much stronger system than just giving that information away for free. It's quite common to rebate the design fee as part of the cost of the project, and that's a further way that you can ensure that you're going to get the project by saying, look, it'll be 2% of the design fee, 2% of the estimate will be the design fee, but if you do go ahead with our company to deliver the system, then we'll rebate that 2% off the final settlement payment, the final invoice. So it takes a bit of time to have the confidence, and the key gap is being able to offer an accurate estimate upfront quickly, and that's why we've developed this tool to assist with that and to give you that best start to then be able to move into the design. So what does that design look like? How does that work? Well, there's a lot of different levels you can go for in terms of designing a project. We, as the national group, have developed this document pack for it to be simple to use. It's designed for residential projects, and it's designed for average size homes. If you're dealing with a 20-bedroom mansion, you're probably going to need a more advanced design pack. But if you're dealing with a 20-bedroom mansion, I would expect you to have some of that knowledge and some of that information already. So this is really to get you going, to get you started. Covering the basics, that as long as you capture this information, then you're going to be in the best place to deliver the project. So the design pack has quite a few different elements to it. The first is the Keypad scheduling functionality. Using, defining not only which keypads you're going to have, which might be a design conversation with the customer or the architect or the interior designer, That's really important, particularly if you can get them to engage with the design and that they can be, they want their design. I want it to look like that on the wall. That's a great place to start with KNX. But we have to tell them what it does. We have to define the functionality. So being able to say, right, each of these buttons will do these specific things enables you to build a much more accurate price, because you can start to look at what the cost of the program will be. More importantly, it gives you a clear, gives the customer a clear understanding of how the system is going to work, which means you know how to program it, which means you know how to show the customer at the end that the system does what you said it would do. We need to capture all the lighting information. What are the circuit schedules? What lighting are we controlling, and how are we allocating that to actuators? Is it dimming? Is it switching? Your channel actuator assignment, so you know how to wire it and program it. All that information needs to be captured and can be captured using this design pack. The same with shading and HVAC. There's the type of heating, underfloor radiators, fan coil, whatever it may be. The number of zones, whether you're using temperature sensors on the floor. The design pack gives you places to capture all that information in a structured way. There's also a place to put other information like metering. Is there any metering going on the project? What about the system devices? So it's quite simple, really. The key is, the complexity is capturing all the information, getting the information from other trades possibly, or working out what you need. The design pack is the basic version of capturing this information, but we've also included some examples of doing more advanced drawings, such as CAD drawings, some examples of how those layouts could work, and some panel schedule layouts, so you've got a clear, so you can lay out panels and how you can work out your panel sizes and your panel builds. We really hope that this design pack gives you a template which you can use to then evolve and adapt as your business grows. As long as you start from a good foundation, you can easily build bigger, whatever you need to build from it. So that's why we've done this approach of keeping it really basic, keeping it simple, and then that gives you the best opportunity to move forward and grow with KNX. The other really big part of this is the legal side of it, keeping it legal and making sure that you've got agreement with the customer that is watertight and enables you to support the project. For that, I'm going to hand over to Neil, who's going to take the rest of the presentation forward. Neil, if you're joining us.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much for that, Mark. My contribution to the works is to assemble what we've called the KNX UK Code of Conduct and a set of terms and conditions that underpin the Code of Conduct and provide a framework within which we feel that one would be successfully working. We do assume that many that we're talking to are highly competent, know how to document projects, and have done so successfully for many years. But you really are not the target audience. The terms and conditions that we have generated ourselves are really a list of all of the things that have gone wrong terribly over the last 30 or 40 years. And it's very difficult when you're starting to acquire all of that background and knowledge ahead of time. We're confident that these integrators will be doing competent design work. It will be complete and substantially correct. What we're trying to help with is to provide the paperwork that underpins the whole framework. The paperwork is necessary to minimize risk of misunderstanding. It sets out also what to do if there's a problem, and provides a path to resolve issues. And sometimes the bureaucracy behind the project is most important when something actually goes wrong. We've worked to produce a basic framework, some of which Mark's underlined as we've been moving along. We would expect the contractor to provide a detailed quotation or estimate for the works to be undertaken. This also describes all of the services, describes the equipment that will be offered, and includes a functional performance specification by way of clarification. Hand in hand with that, a detailed payment schedule relates to the quotation. They both lock against each other. This provides a set of targets and dependencies that will relate therefore to the program of work, which relates to the quotation, includes dates for interim release for things like drawings and software, and payment targets. It's important to agree and sign a contract for the scope of works, which includes a dispute resolution provision, which details a process for mediation if anything is required and something has gone wrong. Contract can be a straightforward letter. It can be based on the JST small works. It can be the more complex subcontract element of a JST 84. Its in form is necessary to say that we will provide this list of services over this period of time for this amount of money in this fashion. It should be as straightforward and as simple as that. As the works proceed, it's important to provide weekly or monthly reports, depending on the length and complexity of the contract, which indicate the work status, underline any problems that may have arisen, and delays that have occurred, or developments that there have been made to the scope of works, or information that's required either from other contractors that are on site or from the clients themselves. It's documented regularly. It provides a historical record that can be referenced at the close of the works. It's important to issue a formal RFI, a request for information, when it's required, because again, it provides an audit trail that says we need this. If we don't have it, then there's the risk of delay, and that has an effect on everybody's bottom line. If there are any changes to the works, to the scope, it's important to issue a formal notification, which again becomes part of the audit trail and supports any price differences. The payment schedule will underline what has to be paid when. It's important to issue a valuation at that point, along with the invoice, and that must align with the schedule or the schedule as it's been updated by any changes to the works. This will then go on to provide a portfolio of documentation for the whole of the job. At the same time as the billing is raised, assessments can be made for any additional costs or the impact of delays. This is not something that can be easily discussed or negotiated at the close of a contract, when a lot of these things have been long forgotten, but those days and weeks that pile on are at your cost, and they should be minuted as they occur during the process of the contract. It's important at final handover to provide copies of all non-proprietary software and programs as source code, clearly acknowledging that the client therefore owns a copy of the source code for the project, has the ability, the right to have this modified update by a qualified programmer of their choice. Retaining the software in order to maintain a hold over a client in the years to come is not regarded as acceptable. Some areas of the world are much more litigious than we are in the United Kingdom or across Europe. I'm thinking of you, America. And this is the sort of thing that frequently ends up being discussed between legal representatives. But it's been paid for, it's unique to this particular project, it's the owner's right to be able to go elsewhere off in the future, because with the best will in the world, your company may have ceased to exist or have a different form, or they may just want to develop their project in a completely different direction. At final handover, it's in everybody's best interest, if you undertake a full client hands-on training, provide an O&M set, operation and maintenance manuals, and fully describe the details of every element in the works. This will reduce the amount of support that is taken for granted that you will continue to provide off into the future. This must be underpinned with a set of as-built drawings with any test sheets and operation manuals, service plans, and so on. There will obviously be a warranty period during which time it's not unreasonable to be asked to provide some support for the project. it's a natural thing to progress from that into a more formal support arrangement, which reinforces the relationship with the client off into the future. And as a little tidy thing at handover, get a sign off, a signature that says, yes, it's done, yes, it does what I asked, and yes, we've paid the bills. So by way of completion, there's a neat and tidy closure to the paperwork that has been generated. It's probably more paperwork than most small contractors thought that they would have to see in their careers, but for each project, it's immensely valuable and adds greatly to the professionalism that is brought to the project and maintained off into the future. I think, Mark, I can hand back across to you as we go to a closure on that. We hope we've provided a set of starting points, a set of points of reference to develop more complex projects and work with these and with other contractors and with clients professionally. In many ways, it should make it easier. It should make it more straightforward and simple, that the framework exists, that somebody has been there before and stumbled on some of these issues, and that this is the way that fellow professionals deal with the projects. You're in the best of good company, therefore. It's designed to stand up, provide protection, and support the works that you're doing, and add value to your membership of the association, and in a very real way, provide the owner, the person that you're, or company that you're actually working for, with confidence that you know what you're talking about, that your estimate is based on a robust framework and design process. We think this will add greatly to your position within the community, and it's something that KNX UK is providing to support the KNX business that you're embarking on, and it becomes an integral part of your membership of this group of people. Obviously, and you can see from the card, it's easy to email in and get a full set of details from us as to what you need to do to proceed from here. And we'd be very pleased to answer any questions that have come up in Mark's and my conversation and that you might now have. So we can hand to the floor. And I'm not seeing any questions coming up. I'm sure there must be something in what we have said that requires clarification. In which case, I think we can probably, Mark, move on towards closing this particular presentation.
Thank you, Neil. I hope everybody's enjoyed this session and got an understanding of how KNX UK can help you deliver projects. If you're looking to join the national group, please reach out to the email there, admin@knxuk.org, where Tracy will be able to assist you with membership, getting involved, and also then obviously provide you the KNX UK onboarding pack. Thank you, everybody, for your attention. Please, if you do have any follow-up questions, you can use the same email address there to get in touch and we'll be able to help you. Thank you very much. Oh, sorry, we have got a question. So the estimate, do you provide the estimation tool for free? It's part of KNX UK membership. So if you want to join KNX UK, then you're able to get a hold of the onboarding pack. Hope that answers your question. If there are any others, yeah, drop them through on email and we'll certainly be able to help. Thank you, everybody, and thank you very much to the KNX UK organisation for hosting this. Christian, we really appreciate your support, and we hope to hear from you all soon. Thank you very much.